Okay, let's unpack this business. It's always changing, isn't it? It kind of has to be.
It really does.
But what are the actual forces that don't just, react to change, but actively encourage it, maybe even kick it off?
That's exactly what we're digging into today. We've got this stack of sources you pulled together, articles, notes, research,
Right.
and we're going to try and pull out the most crucial bits.
So the mission is to really get a handle on what these driving forces are, the things pushing businesses, and maybe more importantly, figure out why they matter to you, how they shape the business world you see every day.
And the sources give us a really good range. It's clear these forces are, well, diverse. Some come from inside the company,
Internal stuff.
yeah, internal, and others are definitely external, from the wider environment.
And the material makes an interesting point right at the start. Some things, like managers or maybe even laws, can sometimes push back against change, be restraining forces.
That's true. It's a bit of a twist.
Hmm.
But today, we're really focusing on how they drive change, how they create that forward momentum.
Got it. So the push factors, where do we start?
Well, let's start inside the business itself. The sources point pretty clearly to owners and managers first.
Seems logical. I mean, they're in charge. Owners set things up. Managers are supposed to run things profitably.
Exactly. But the motivation is key, and it can differ. For a small business owner, it's often very direct, very personal. Their livelihood depends on sales, profit.
So if things dip, they have to change something urgently.
Right. Whereas in big companies, managers often feel the heat from shareholders. They want dividends, returns,
Pushing the managers to find efficiencies, get better results.
which almost always means making changes, shifting strategy, tweaking operations.
So if you understand who's really calling the shots and what pressures they're under, you get a better sense of what kind of changes might be on the horizon.
Precisely. Now, still inside the company, let's talk about employees. The sources see them as a key driving force, too.
Okay, but maybe not just in terms of demanding pay rises.
Well, fair pay and conditions are expected, obviously. But the sources highlight something else. Environments where creativity and innovation are actually encouraged.
Ah, so when employees feel they can contribute ideas.
Yes. In those places, employees don't just stick to the script. They actively suggest and push for changes, better processes, new product ideas, different policies.
Any examples mentioned?
Yeah, the sources bring up companies like Panasonic, Samsung, Apple, Google, saying their success owes a lot to employee creativity driving innovation.
So it's not just tweaks. It can lead to major shifts in tech or how the company operates.
Absolutely. Fundamental changes.
Yeah.
It really shows that the drive for change isn't just top-down. It can bubble up from anywhere.
A good reminder that your own role or the role of colleagues can be surprisingly powerful in shaping a company's direction.
Definitely. Okay, let's step outside the business now.
Yeah.
Because that's where some really intense pressures come from. Competitors, for instance.
Right. You absolutely have to watch what your rivals are up to.
You just can't afford not to. The sources are clear. Constant monitoring is essential.
And what they do forces your hand, right?
Very much.
Yeah.
A new competitor enters the market. Everything changes. Or think about pricing.
Like the supermarket example is in the sources. Kohl's and Woolies constantly battling on staple prices.
Exactly. That forces others to react, either match them or find a completely different strategy.
And technology adoption is a big one here too, isn't it? Like with electric cars, Tesla jumps ahead.
And suddenly, the established giants, Toyota, Audi, BMW, Volvo, all of them are playing catch-up. They had to pour resources into EVs to stay in the game.
It's not just products either, is it? Competitor advertising, online stuff.
All of it, their campaigns, their website improvements, their sales tactics, it all creates pressure to adapt your own approach. What happens in the marketplace directly forces strategic change.
Okay, another big external force that forces change, maybe even more directly, is legislation.
Oh, for sure. Laws aren't optional extras. They tell businesses what they must do or must stop doing.
And ignoring them is not advisable. Big fines, potentially worse.
Definitely. The sources use the bans on single-use plastics as a prime example. That wasn't a suggestion, it was a hard requirement.
I remember that rollout. By 2022, plastic bags were banned across Australia, and some retailers like ALDI even moved before they absolutely had to.
And it didn't stop there. Victoria then banned straws, cutlery, polystyrene containers in 2023. Think about the impact.
Huge. Not just for shops, but for the companies making that stuff. Massive adaptation needed. Fast.
Right. And the sources also mentioned CSL during the pandemic. The pressure from government, from the public to make the AstraZeneca vaccine, that's a powerful external push demanding change.
So laws create these hard deadlines, these unavoidable triggers for businesses to change how they operate, maybe even what they sell.
Couldn't put it better. Now, shifting focus slightly, but still outside the business itself. The simple pursuit of profit.
Seems fundamental, almost too obvious.
It does, but the sources frame it as this constant underlying driver. Profit isn't just nice to have, it's essential for survival long term. Revenue has to beat expenses.
And if it doesn't, or if the goal is more profit,
Then management will make changes. It's almost guaranteed. They'll look at ways to increase revenue, more sales, maybe higher prices.
or the other side of the coin.
They'll focus on the reduction of costs. The sources often pair these two. Costs cover everything: supplies, energy, wages, taxes.
And when those costs go up.
They bite directly into profit. So that forces businesses to get serious about cost-cutting strategies.
What kind of strategies did the sources mention?
Things like finding cheaper suppliers, could be local, could be overseas. Sometimes sourcing locally actually saves money by avoiding import taxes.
Makes sense. What else?
Looking at labor costs is common. That might mean, unfortunately, downsizing. Or it could mean replacing people with technology, automation, robotics on assembly lines.
We see a lot of that.
Yeah. And even shopping around for better deals on utilities, like electricity or water, especially where privatization has created more choice.
So it all comes back to that profit equation. Boost revenue, cut costs. It's a constant pressure cooker forcing evaluation and change.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about a really huge external force: globalization.
Okay. The world getting smaller, in business terms.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The sources define it as that increased flow of trade, investment, tech, money, even people across borders.
Yeah.
Driven by fewer trade barriers, technology making communication easier, cheaper transport.
And the result is?
The world basically acts like one big marketplace.
Yeah.
So an Australian company isn't just competing locally or nationally anymore.
They're up against businesses everywhere.
Exactly. Ignoring that global context is risky. Globalization essentially forces businesses to change, to adapt, just to stay viable and competitive on that bigger stage.
And this ties into things like global sourcing, maybe manufacturing overseas, outsourcing, stuff we might have touched on before.
It does. It demands a global mindset, even for seemingly local businesses.
Yes. Okay, and closely related, you mentioned technology earlier. That feels like a massive driver on its own.
Oh, it's fundamental. The sources really stress this. Keeping up with technology isn't just nice, it's critical for competitiveness, locally, nationally, globally.
Fall behind technologically and you risk, well, failing.
That's the harsh reality, because tech allows for more efficiency, effectiveness, it cuts costs, boosts productivity. Advances are happening constantly, pushing change.
What examples stood out?
Well, Telstra's big T25 strategy was mentioned, focusing heavily on leading tech like 5G, 6G, cloud platforms, but also everyday things.
Like paying with your phone or QR codes everywhere now.
Exactly. Businesses had to adopt those fast. Or, think bigger, IKEA using augmented reality to place virtual furniture in your room. Tesla pioneering driverless tech.
So technology isn't just a tool you use.
No, it actively reshapes entire industries. It dictates new ways of doing business, new ways of reaching customers. It's a constant engine of change.
Which leads nicely into another force, innovation.
Yes, often sparked by tech or globalization, but the sources treat it as distinct.
And innovation here means?
Improving something that already exists, basically,
Yeah.
according to the sources. It could be driven by R&D, seeing a gap in the market, or just individual creativity.
And how does that drive change?
Think about communication innovations. Smartphones, reliable Wi-Fi, social media apps like Facebook or Twitter. Suddenly, businesses had to develop an online presence, change how they talk to customers.
Or other examples like checking in for flights remotely, contactless payments becoming the norm, food delivery apps exploding.
All examples of innovation forcing widespread changes in behavior and business models. For many, innovation isn't just for getting an edge, it's vital for survival. It's about constantly seeking new angles, better ways.
Right, staying ahead or at least keeping up.
Exactly. Okay, one final driving force to wrap things up: societal attitudes.
So how we collectively think and feel about things, how does that pressure businesses?
Significantly, businesses exist within society, not apart from it. And with communication being so fast now.
Everyone knows what companies are doing, good or bad.
Pretty much.
Mm.
And that public awareness creates pressure. The sources point to the plastic bag example again. Supermarkets phasing them out before the law forced them to, largely due to shifting customer attitudes about the environment.
And public opinion really mattered there.
It did. And it goes broader. Society increasingly expects businesses not just to sell stuff, but to offer decent products, treat employees ethically, and actually contribute positively. Corporate social responsibility, or CSR.
Is that becoming more expected?
The sources suggest so. They mentioned CSL support during the 2020 bushfires donations, matching employee contributions as an example of the kind of community engagement that people increasingly look for from big companies. Businesses have to listen and respond to these evolving values.
Okay, wow. So that's quite a list. We've gone from inside the company, owners, managers, employees, to market forces like competitors, profit, costs.
It then tackled the big external pressures,
Yeah.
legislation, globalization, technology, innovation, and finally, societal attitudes. It's a complex mix.
It really is. But understanding these different drivers, it definitely gives you a clearer view of why businesses act the way they do. It's like a shortcut to understanding the dynamics at play.
It changes how you interpret business news or even just observe companies around you.
Absolutely. So maybe a final thought for you listening in. As you look at the businesses you interact with, where you work, where you shop, companies you follow based on what we've just unpacked from these sources, which of these drivers do you think is really the most powerful force shaping their decisions right now?
And maybe consider how these forces might be working together, or maybe even pulling in opposite directions to push that company down a particular path, something to mull over.